Landlord nightmares. Have you guys ever dealt with a terrible landlord? I want to hear about it. I'll see you in the comments.
2 years ago this month, I represented myself in court against my landlord. Now, why am I sharing this story? Well, I'm so sick and tired of people just dealing with things just because they are the way they are when it comes to bad apartments and or landlords. Without further ado, how I dragged my landlord to court, and you should too. It was October of 2021, and I got a job offer to move out to New York City, and after looking at literally 40 apartments, I ended up picking the one that I ended up living in. So I ended up packing my entire life in Chicago, moving out to New York City, and then handing over the property manager what felt like my entire life in the form of first month's rent and a security deposit. And the problems began day one. While I was moving all of my stuff into my new apartment, I noticed that one of the windows was open in the living room, and I thought that was kind of weird, so I shut the window, and about 10 minutes later, all of the floorboards next to the window skyrocketed, and I had a mini half pipe in my living room. So I called my superintendent and asked him if he could come over and fix it and just tell me why that happened, and then he blamed me because I was not supposed to close that window. I'm like, great, I guess I'll have to keep the window open, and then Laverne showed up. Laverne was the extra large cockroach that decided to perch itself inside of my living room windowsill. Up until that point, I had never encountered a cockroach, and well, a new fear was unlocked. Thank God Laverne had left and I was able to shut the window, but y'all, it keeps getting better. I encountered a very familiar sound that every New Yorker has practically heard, and I had not at that point, and it's called the steam pipes banging. And these steam pipes banged every single hour all throughout the day, including the night.
Maybe I don't want to live in New York. I've always dreamt of living in New York City. I love New York. Not sounding so great. I've also had a unit with cockroaches. I've dealt with that before. Not fun. I found one in my bed. I'll never forget that day.
Oh, that is not normal. The boiler is malfunctioning and your landlord needs to fix it, but it's super freaking expensive, and that's why they don't fix them, and that's why it's a very common sound in New York apartments. But funny enough, the steam pipes would bang so freaking loud and so intensely that paint started falling from the ceiling. And then all of the walls started cracking next to the steam pipes. And then mold started forming on the wood next to the steam pipes because there was so much, steam. And then it started getting really cold, and I found out my windows were not properly insulated, so your girl was frozen. And I wish I was joking, this was all within 1 month. And throughout all of this, I was calling my superintendent, trying to figure out what was going on, and he didn't answer a single one of my phone calls. Yeah, it turns out he was fired, and my building did not replace him with a new superintendent. At this point, I was so freaking lost and had no idea what was going on, so I ended up finding a resource that gives you free legal advice on what to do in your housing crisis, and they gave me a bunch of directions, and I started following them. So then I ended up filing a report with the Housing Preservation Department. Then an inspector came out, and the inspector was like, yeah, this is not a livable apartment. And then I started withholding my rent. This is a very long story, so go to part 2. Get around.
Withholding your rent? I didn't even know you could do that. All right, part 2, baby. Let's go.
How I dragged my landlord to court, and you should too, part 2. I truly thought, surely because I'm withholding my rent, I would get someone's attention, but nope, I did not. They had no idea I wasn't paying rent for 5 months. And I wish I was joking. The problems were not resolved within the 5 months. I ended up getting a letter slapped on my door saying I'd be evicted if I didn't pay my rent. You best believe I was freaking out at this point, but I know I was totally within my legal right to do so. So I tried calling the property manager, tried calling the building that my landlord was in, tried calling my landlord themselves. No one was picking up their phones. Didn't even have an email. Couldn't even contact these people. So then I ended up marching my way down to the housing court in New York City, filing a summons of complaint against my landlord, and then getting assigned a court date. And the court date was in April. It was March at this point. All of this just seems like a fever dream looking back. I think I was hallucinating for most of it because I was so freaking exhausted from not being able to sleep in my own apartment, plus the stress of going to court as a punk 23-year-old.
I give you so much credit because it would take so much to dig your heels in and say, no, I know my rights and I'm standing by them and I'm fighting this. A lot of people would just be like, screw this, I'm out of here. I mean, that's what I would probably want to do, run from my problems.
Oh my god, no, I would not wish this on anyone. But y'all, it had to be done in the name of justice. Y'all and I showed up to housing court with about a binder of evidence of pictures and phone records and emails and everything that I could in order to prove my innocence.
Good for you.
And guess what? My landlord was not there. So the judge looks at me and asks me to provide proof that I actually sent the summons of complaint, so I showed them the certified mail receipt, and she cross-checked the address that I sent it to, and I did everything right. And somehow this judge went into her little computer and found the dude's phone number that I never had and was like, yo, you're supposed to be in court, and he was very confused. About 5 minutes later, his attorney shows up on a Zoom call. The attorney goes, yeah, I had no idea about any of this. So then she has to reschedule everything to a later court date, and I had to go back to court in May. Fast forward a few weeks later, I show up in a power suit. I have my same binder of evidence, and again, my landlord is not there. His attorney was on Zoom. He didn't even show up. So of course the judge asks me if I had any evidence to prove that this apartment was indeed uninhabitable and why I wasn't paying my rent, and I said yes. Gave the binder to the officer gave it to her, and she goes, it's not looking good for you, counsel, and it felt so good. It was just like, yes, 0.1 for the good guy. After all said and done, the judge ordered a mediation between me and my landlord, so tried calling the guy, and of course he was not answering me. One more part, and I promise it's worth it. Go to part 3. Carry on.
I'm going to part 3. I'm invested, girl. I don't even know you, but I feel like I'm proud of you. I am proud of this stranger on the internet, okay? Good for you, girl.
How I dragged my landlord to court, and you should too, part 3. And of course, in between the 2 court dates, their management team showed up to make all of the repairs that were needed. But wait, there's more. When I was taking a shower one morning in between the 2 court dates, the pipes in my bath exploded, and I ended up accidentally flooding the apartments below mine. I tried exhausting all of my communication options, and I even showed up to his office. Of course, he was not there. And fast forward 2 weeks, I get a phone call from my brother asking why we're being sued. So my brother was a co-signer on this apartment. He had never even seen the inside of the apartment. He just signed because I didn't make the 40 times rent requirement. And so his phone number was on the lease, and that's why my landlord was able to get in touch with him. He did not want to go through me. So of course my brother was freaking out and sent me the phone number of the landlord, and I immediately called him back. Of course, he was the meanest human you have ever spoken to in your entire life. This dude couldn't care less if I was dead or alive. He just wanted his money, and I was not about to hand it over to him. After negotiating and chatting, and of course getting this in writing, I only owed about half of the rent that I owed for the 6 months that I was living there in hell. Before anyone tells me, could I have asked for more? Absolutely. But when it's 6 months of suffering, you kind of are over it and want to be done with suffering. Before anyone else says, well, you probably could have gotten even more if you went through an attorney, well, I would have had to owe that attorney money anyway, so it kind of all equals out.
Yeah, if you can compile the evidence yourself, I totally respect it. Most people couldn't afford an attorney for something like this, and that's probably why a lot of people wouldn't dig their heels in. Like me, I probably would have just tried to avoid. I mean, I had a very similar situation of impossible to get a hold of a landlord. Things weren't getting fixed. My ceiling molded and rotted and came down on me in the shower. It was a whole thing. And I was 17 at the time, so I didn't know shit about it. I didn't even know I had rights. It was a fun time of my life. Landlord raised my rent after his wife gave birth. Is that legal?
Yeah, hello?
Hi, Jackson. It's Josie. I'm just calling with regards to this email that I've just got through about the rent increase. Well, I mean, obviously, you know, it's quite a big increase.
Oh, it's not that much. It's not that much.
Well, yeah, it's £100 that it's gone up by. So I'm just a bit shocked as to why it's gone up. We have just renewed the contract and said a set price that we were happy to move forward with, and now you're springing this like increase on me. So you're raising the cost for what reason?
Well, I've recently had a baby. My wife's just had a baby, and the money's got to come from somewhere, you know. Like, I've got to afford maintenance on your place. Like, how many times have you called me out, like, for plumbing and stuff? And every time I've sent a man there in days, and I've got it fixed. That's because I'm a good landlord. It's
absolutely ridiculous. Jackson, I shouldn't have to deal with the price increase because you're having a baby.
Well, it's really nothing. What is that, 25 quid a week? Can you not make 25 quid a week? Are you that lazy? Do you not work? Listen, you can have all the problems with it that you want, but at the end of the day, you signed in the contract, so you're in here or you're not. You either pay the rent that I'm asking, or I'll give you a week to get rid of your stuff, and that's me being nice, because I wouldn't usually give people a week. I'd usually give them 24 hours. You've got 2 choices. You either pay the 100 quid or you don't, and you leave.
Yeah, I'm not paying that. I'd be gone. Personally, there's no way you're gonna sit there and say, I just had a baby, the money's gotta come from somewhere. Respectfully, that's not my problem. I get kids are expensive, man. I totally understand. I feel for you. But that's not on me. What? There's no way I want to stay renting from this man. No way. That's gotta be illegal. I know everywhere's different in terms of rent increase. Luckily, I'm locked in. I have controlled rent, so it can only go up the 2.5% from like the government increase. My landlord cannot raise the rent. I'm in rent control, but everywhere has different laws and rules, so maybe this is allowed? I don't know. That's crazy to me. We're hopping on hydration station. Drink some water. It's good for you, but let me know what's in your cup either way. You know, I do want to know, and there's no judgment here. It's lemon water in mine. Cheers. I don't know if I put too much lemon or if just this lemon is like sour. I can't tell, but whew.
My landlord was sneaking into my house for over a year under the guise of being our handyman. And when I asked the real estate agent if this was the case, she admitted that she knew. And now she's asked that in a survey that's going to be sent out to us, that we give her a 8 or 9 out of 10. If you are renting, you should, and if you don't, you should know that real estate agents, they're not there for you, they're there for their client, which is a landlord. This is a video of me crying in my cupboard whilst he's in my house after he just yelled at me. I don't want this to be a let's landlord situation. I don't think every landlord is awful and an awful person, and hopefully one day I too may be able to be a landlord myself. But let me tell you, if I am to become a landlord, I will be the best landlord possible. My whole life I've grown up in rentals, and I understand how important it is to feel safe in your own home and feel like it's your own home and to feel like you're being supported. Because if you are a landlord, you are in a much better financial situation, or at least should be, than the people that are renting your home and paying off your mortgage.
Yeah, I need to know more to the story, and we have some other parts, because what do you mean?
So remember when my landlord was sneaking into my house pretending to be a handyman? Well, one of the times he was here was to fix the dishwasher. And guess what? Still hasn't been fixed. The dishwasher. I've asked for 2 things to be repaired, the dishwasher, and I need a screen door on the door in the laundry. There's no ventilation in there, and I told them months ago, like at least 9 months ago, saying we need ventilation in there, otherwise there's gonna get mold. And guess what we got? We got mold. And when I told them we got mold, they sent me a list of instructions on how to remove mold. And I said, that's not the point. I need ventilation in the laundry. We need either a vent or a screen door, because I can't leave the door open because I have 2 kittens and we live on the side of a freaking highway. I'm actually at my wit's end, and I think I'm this close to naming and shaming the agency. I should also mention the first time that they replied about getting the ventilation in the laundry, they said you can have a door or a vent, but you have to pay half. I'm sorry, I'm not paying for half of an improvement on your investment property. Like what? Especially after you've been sneaking into my house for over a year pretending to be a handyman, and now you're saying that I need to pay half for ventilation in the laundry. I also gave the landlord the benefit of the doubt after the whole him sneaking into my house for over a year thing. I didn't take that further. So the least they can do is be cooperative when I'm asking for improvements so that we don't get mold in the house and so that I can do my dishes. I'm paying rent for a dishwasher. I should be able to use my dishwasher. We emailed them again this week and there still hasn't been anything done, and I honestly don't know what to do.
I'm not understanding why they were sneaking in as a maintenance person, even though they're a landlord. Was it just to kind of scope out your unit, see how you're keeping up with their property? Like what did that do for the landlord to pretend to be a maintenance guy and look at the dishwasher and not fix it? Like what does that do from the landlord? Are they just being nosy and they just want to see inside the unit?
I'm gonna do this while I clean my stove because we actually have a house inspection coming up. So a lot of you were saying that I should take this further and that I should be taking it to the tribunal or the ombudsman or whatever it may be. And a lot of you were also saying that I should absolutely take it further because they could be doing this to other people, and I totally get that. However, it's not just me living in this house. At the time there were 4 of us, and taking it further meant that we could lose this rental, which I mean, I guess even, yeah, all of us really just couldn't afford that. I'd also like to say that 99% of the comments were super lovely and super supportive, and that was great. But obviously it was met with a little bit of skepticism, and I mean, of course it was, about what other breaches we had made to our agreement. And I can guarantee you that we stuck to our agreement to the T. I have a lot of respect for landlords. I know that that view is not shared with most, but I always make sure that the house is tidy and well kept and that If there are new tenants on the agreement, they're on the agreement. If there's new pets, they're on the agreement as well. So in terms of why he was so upset, the only thing I can really put it down to is I think maybe he might have been stressed. Obviously, there have been interest rates increasing, and being a landlord can be stressful, especially I'm sure when you own multiple properties, as he told me.
I really respect her just taking the time to like see it from a landlord's perspective. Like, she did not have to do that at all. She's very mature, more mature than I am.
He owns all of the properties on this lot. So yeah, I'm sure him walking in here and seeing that the backyard was absolutely not up to scratch probably was quite stressful for him. I can understand that. I can't understand though is the blatant disrespect and the entitlement.
Ma'am, do you have to be doing this while telling your story? You couldn't have picked a sponge, maybe, or something quieter?
The entitlement that he felt he had to yell at us in our home, essentially. And again, yes, his house, his asset, my home, and to yell at us and berate us over the state of the yard, which I did mention. There had been weeks of rain. There was no way that we were going to be able to do any sort of maintenance or mow the lawns because the ground was soggy. Someone else also said that tenants deserve more rights. We actually have quite a lot of rights, and he made it very clear that he was aware of that and he did not like that. He actually went on a tangent and said something along the lines of, you tenants have more rights than us owners. And he was not happy about that. So I was thinking back on when we first moved in, and the state of the yard actually wasn't that great. The backyard had no grass. It was just a complete mud pit, and the back slab of concrete was filthy. And so I said to the real estate agent, I said, the concrete's really messy. Like, do we need to make sure that the concrete is hosed down, like with a pressure washer before we move out? Like, what's the go with that? And she said, no, that's fine, I'll send someone over. And the person that was sent over was this little old woman, not super old, maybe like 50s, 60s. And she was not a professional, and she just had a really cheap like Karcher, not even a Karcher, just like a pressure hose, I guess. And she hosed it down, and it was fine, but it wasn't professionally done. And I asked her about, like, do you do this? Like, and she said she did do it for other people as well. And it just didn't sit right with me. And I have an inkling that that was actually the owner's wife and also part owner as well. So that'll be interesting when we inevitably move out to find out if maybe they didn't hire a professional, that it was her.
I mean, we can't put it past them since he was pretending to be a maintenance person, but he was actually the landlord. That would make sense.
You also said that I should be giving the real estate agent a 0 out of 10 for the survey. And I also think that it's very timely that we were sent that email about the survey a couple of days before our house inspection. So these are all things that we need to consider about keeping a roof over our head before we go and stand up for our rights, essentially. So in terms of whether we think that we're going to be getting our lease renewed, honestly, I have no idea. After that scenario, the estate agent did apologize on behalf of the owner, and he apparently is very sorry for what happened. So hopefully they can see past this, because we, like I said, we really enjoy living here. And the backyard aside, we're actually really good tenants. We always pay our rent on time. We take care of the property aside from that one scenario. So hopefully we will get our lease renewed. I just need to pass this house inspection.
What is this house inspection? I've never rented a house before. I've only ever been in apartments and condo buildings. Do you have to pass some kind of like upkeep inspection to continue renting? I'm genuinely asking.
I still can't believe this happened to me. So a year ago, I was living in Berlin, Germany, right? It was like 8 a.m. My landlord comes banging on my door, and I'm like, I was still in bed. So I put on pants and like go to the door, and I'm like, hey, what's up? He's like, the cops are on their way. And I'm like, why? Like, I have been here a week. Like, what could I have done for the cops to be on their way, you know? But he says, I have it on good authority that you illegally dumped a mattress in the trash can. And if you know anything about Germans, is they take their trash very seriously. Like, first off, like, my mattress is on my bed. Like, you can come in. Like, I'll show you. And he's like, no. He's like, I have you on video dumping the mattress. And I'm like, okay, can, like, I see this video? Like this is kind of crazy, you know? So we go down to like the little basement thing where he has this like little camera set up, and we're like watching back the feed, and he like points at two guys. He's like, see, that's you guys. And I'll give him it. Like, one was brown hair and one had like blondish hair, right? So we take off my hat and I was like, look at my hairline and look at the dude in the video's hairline. Is this receding? Does this look like it's receding to you? He's just kind of like looks at me. He's like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. And the cops like never really ended up coming, but I did break like a few of his dishes like while I was staying there, and I think he felt bad, so he gave me back my security deposit in full. So, you know, it kind of worked out for me.
Well, yeah, what an accusation. To just show up at the door and say the cops are on the way because you have proof they did something that you didn't? You were just going off that? Sir.
Hey guys, I want to run something by you guys because I'm not, I have a question, okay? So my rental in Milwaukee from before I moved down, after about 3 weeks, I sent him a text message asking about the deposit, and he told me that my cats had peed on the carpet. And I'm like, no, but can you show me, just send me some proof. So he sent me a photo of the ring around the carpet where I had an air filter. So like where the dust came in, because the place was really dusty, so I bought an air filter. There was a dust ring on the floor, but it was not cat pee. And so I'm like, that's not cat pee. That is literally dust. And I know that it came up because I rubbed my foot along one edge of it to make sure. And I would have vacuumed it up myself, except he didn't provide me with a vacuum cleaner. So I had no choice but to leave that ring of dust on the carpet. So now he's been arguing with me and going back and forth, telling me that he might have to replace the entire carpet, but I can't have somebody come take a look. He's like, my housekeeper said it smelled like pee, and my contractor said it smells like pee. Now I know for a fact that while I was renting, this guy did not have a contractor because I had to wait for 3 days for him to come out and fix an electrical problem where I had no electricity in my bathroom and part of the kitchen, and it took him 3 days. And he came out and fixed that himself. So I don't know who this mysterious new contractor is.
Let's say the cat peed on one spot of the carpet. Let's just say that did happen. I feel like it would be, I'm gonna hire I'm gonna get the carpet professionally cleaned versus I'm gonna need to replace the entire room of carpet. Could that just be that you want me to pay for this whole room to get new carpet?
Anyway, the apartment has been listed on Furnish Finder as available for December 1st, and it has been listed since I left. And so his reasoning with that is that he can list the apartment, it's available. And I'm like, yeah, but if you're going to try to show it, if it smells like urine, nobody's going to want to rent it. So that doesn't make sense either. And
interesting.
I don't know, like there's just been a lot of back and forth. So he wouldn't let me have somebody come look at it, but I was expected to believe, just take his word for it. And so I enlisted the help of one of my friends that still lives in Milwaukee and made a fake Furnish Finder account and had him go look at the apartment under the guise of wanting to rent it.
That is genius. Never would have thought to do that.
Now, as soon as I booked that viewing, he was like, oh, the fish shampoo miraculously fixed it. So my friend went and he looked and he was like, there's no stain. He's like, there's no smell and the carpet is not wet. So there was no indication that he had just shampooed a carpet for the 5th time. Anyway, so my guess, like my hypothesis is, so on the Furnish Finder, he's got it listed with no deposit. So my guess is he has not been able to rent that unit, and maybe he can't pay the mortgage on it, or maybe he's strapped for cash. I don't know, but maybe he thought it would be rented out and it's not. And instead of giving me back my money, he's just trying to keep it, and I'm pretty upset about it. And so I had to send him a demand letter for an itemized list of supplies that he has apparently used, and he sent me one document that I could not open, and then he sent me some receipt for like $40 for some cleaner, but it had no date on it. So I can't verify what that, like, I don't know. Does it seem fishy to you guys? It feels my gut says that he is just trying to keep my deposit. And so I told him that I was consulting with an attorney. He's still trying to, I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me anyway. What do you guys think?
So you still don't have your security deposit back? You know, there are good landlords out there. However, there's just so many bad ones, and they do try to keep your security deposit. And that's why you have to take pictures before moving in, when moving out, take videos, pictures, everything, because they will try to find any reason to keep that security deposit. It's a gain for them. It's a business, it's finances, whatever. It very well could be that he was trying to, you know, like give you a runaround and find any reason to keep your security deposit. Yeah, I'd be fighting for my security deposit back, especially when there was no P.
Anyhow, our landlord is trying to get us to pay over $350 for something that wasn't our fault. One night we were cleaning up dinner and we put a little bit of food scraps down the garbage disposal, and it all of a sudden started backing up. So we had maintenance come out and they couldn't fix it, so they had to call a sewer and drainage company. Now they came out and they snaked the entire drain, and they told us that it wasn't from food being put down there because a garbage disposal is supposed to do that, and he was digging up literally dirt from sneaking. He even showed us the dirt on his hands. Called the company that came out just to get a full report on what was going on, and they told me that they couldn't give it to me and that I had to go through my landlord. Now my landlord is saying that they are telling her that it was caused from food. I also want to put that we share the same piping system as people above us. I asked for a full report from the landlord, and they told me that it was pretty much just a word of mouth. So what would you do in this incident? Would you pay the $350 or fight it?
I would fight that, right? Are we fighting that situation? That's what it's for. The whole point is to put food down there. And if the people who investigated and did the maintenance is coming back and saying, no, there's an issue here, there's dirt, it's not food that caused this, I need that in writing so I can provide that to my landlord to fight the case. I've always wanted one of those. I think it's so cool, people who have that little thing and you put the switch on, it goes, I just am fascinated by it. I hope to have one day in a future home. Goals, baby. Thai landlord finds condo unit covered in rubbish and maggots. Oh, so this is a nightmare for the landlord. Okay. This landlord in Thailand shared that he had rented a condo unit to a young woman. She'd always pay rent late and kept animals against the house's rules. Other tenants started complaining about the unpleasant smells from her apartment, and the owner didn't want her to stay. Oh my God, is that pee? The woman then allegedly disappeared without paying rent, leaving the flat covered in trash and maggots. I feel sick. Oh my God, I was not prepared for this. I'm trying not to be judgmental because I don't know the person, and maybe they struggle with severe mental health issues that maybe I personally wouldn't understand. I can't live in a mess. Maybe they quite literally couldn't clean. I don't know how someone just chooses to live in a situation like that. So there has to be more there. The cost to even get your unit back into a place where you could rent it out again and start making some of your money back. What a nightmare. Let me know your thoughts, you guys, and if you've had a nightmare landlord story, I want to hear about it. Or if you are a landlord and maybe you had a tenant nightmare story. Interesting. Stay classy out there. Stay sassy.